Hi, my top 10 models, but I've got 12 here on the table. So I'm going to think of two of them as honorable mentions, and I'll cover them first. Let me start with this one. So this Monogram P51D was in fact the first model that I ever sprayed. This was sprayed with that little compressor that you pump tires up with by the side of the road. One of those absolute cheap junk little compressors that don't have a tank, and they just make a lot of noise and produce air, but it was good enough, and for quite a while I actually sprayed with it. This was before I knew about base coats and using certain colors to enhance other colors later. All I knew about was spraying a color. The red is sprayed, the white is hand painted. So the reason this is an honorable mention is because it was probably my best aircraft at the time and for quite a long time afterwards. By my current standards, it's quite average, but it's still very pleasing to look at. And one of the reasons that I'm doing a whole bunch of other Reno Mustangs now is just I really like the way this one came out. And this was just purely fictitious. I wasn't working from anything, and I was just grabbing decals as I was going along. Nothing really else much to say about that. That was a pretty simple build, but very appealing to me at the time and even now. The other honorable mention is this little one, which by period, by the way, that Mustang dates back to 1992, which makes it 32 years old. This one, roughly the same period. But I almost want to say had a lot more skill than that one, but it probably just had a lot more effort into it. So this is the Airfix Harvard, which I did a whole bunch of work to try and make it a lot nicer, which I still like it a lot, but as you will see when I get to my next bunch of Harvards in the 172 as well, this one will only be quite average. So it's got its anti-coal at the bottom there. It's got the anti-coal, which is the anti-collision light, that very bright one. It's got pitot. It's got the steps to get into the, I don't know if you're going to make that out there, little hand carved from very thin sheet. Landing lights. It's got the little Pis Venturi on the side there. So quite a lot of little areas that I just cleaned up on that one, and I still like it a lot, but it is quite old. Okay, now we can get to 10 very good ones. Well, some better than others. Okay, let me start with this one so that I can get all of the, get a bit of bench space here. So I have showed you this one before. A lot of work went into this, but a lot of it not immediately noticeable. Thinning out all trailing edges and all the interior of all glued halves, so that by the time you glue them, you get a very nice thin edge. The actual thickness of those old Airfix 1/24ths was pretty horrendous. Scratch built exhausts with brass tubing. This was the first one that I put nav lights flashing nav lights into. I won a competition with this one, but overall, if you look at it now, it's somewhat average. It also has hand-painted decals, including the springbok, which is separately hand-painted, so all aspects of that roundel are hand-painted, which came out very nicely, but that alone is not, it doesn't make it absolutely amazing. It's just very nice. And this also goes, this is about 1998, I think, can't really remember. Let's get that out the way. It's got a number of faults. It's got a lot of faults, but it's still, I think, in my top 10. Okay, let's also just cover this one, which I have showed you before. Very, very grimy and old looking, but it was certainly my best model at the time. A huge amount of cockpit work done to this Matchbox Mitchell, which, honestly was the wrong kit to be doing so much effort on. A lot of undercarriage effort. Quite a nice spray job. New windows there. You can see that nice flat window there on the side compared to the kit part. A nice enough finish, I think. By current standards, I'd say, again, average. I don't, it did get damaged. I don't really put this on my shelf and think of it as one of my best kits anymore, but it's still worth keeping. But at the time, it absolutely was, and I can't remember the date. It would have been somewhere close to 98 as well. Okay, let us do this one. This one probably one of my absolute best at the moment. Now this did use chipping, so yes, this has got the chipping technique, or one of the chipping techniques. Just a nice spray job, nice paints. The canopy lines are done with the tape method, which I have spoken about in one of my videos. So that wasn't a huge amount of masking, just did it with the tape method and done. Yeah, nothing really over the top other than a very, very nice paint job. It's not that appealing an aircraft. I wanted to do the Kingfisher with wheels rather than floats, and I've got another one which will get floats. But anyway, that sort of ranks as one of my better looking aircraft, finish wise. This one, which I have also showed before, is my nicest, my most well-built aircraft overall. And it doesn't have any weathering. It is just, everything just built as it should be. So visually pleasing and a very good kit. But less work into that than on the Kingfisher, for instance. The Kingfisher's got a lot of surface attention to get that weathered effect, whereas the ME109 doesn't. But the ME109 remains very pleasing to look at in that scheme. Okay, this one, a little bit dusty, but one of my most visually appealing aircraft as well. Technically, nothing more done. No super detailing. Just built out the box. I think it's probably, a lot to do with that blue. The variation in the blues is just very, very appealing. That little fine radio antenna has broken off the tail, so it's not quite quite at the right position there. It's just lying. And the more I think about it, with these absolute fine little details, which you just can't touch because then it snaps, I feel like I like models where things aren't just going to break off the moment they touch anything, which means a little stretched sprue antenna is not really what I like there. Anyway, okay. We've covered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 12. 7. Okay, let's get to this one. The canopy is somewhere inside. I just couldn't find it right now. I have showed you that in a video as well. So I did do a fair bit of extra in the cockpit, made it look quite nice. A little bit of sort of free reign, if you want, doing my own choice of colors in the cockpit, and of course overall entirely my own thing there. So this one, I just really liked the way I could use a whole bunch of decals and a color scheme that turned out really appealing, at least to me. So I have got 7 Reno Mustangs coming, and I've got about 4 more Reno Harvards coming. Okay, that's that one. We have got 4 left. So this one I have also showed before, and while some of my motorbikes have got equal work into them, this one's finish just makes it, really shine. It's just, everything seemed to work on this one. It also did have the headlight and tail light, although the headlights connections don't quite work anymore. But I think I had to show at least one motorbike there, and this one's finish was just really, really nice. This would probably be my best armor piece. This King Tiger, I can't really remember which year I finished this, but it was within the last 12 years, I think. Maybe longer. So this has got completely hand done Zimmerit with Tamiya filler. Let's just see if I can get you some good angles on that. So this doesn't really have anything much, not much more than the quite large amount of work to get the Zimmerit right. But overall, the end result was that it possibly is the best of my tanks. It doesn't really, it shouldn't stand out much more than the Churchill that I have already showed, and I've got a Sherman as well that has got as much work in, but I think this one overall is the best tank. The next two, the last two, are wargame pieces. So this is a Stegodon from the Lizardman army, and while it does have a thing that it can carry on its back, the Stegodon itself is just what I wanted to show, and I really liked this finish that I got on this thing. It is loose from the base. I do like that a lot. And then the last one from the Orc and Goblin army, a wyvern or wyvern, depending on how you pronounce that, from the Orc and Goblin army. So in the fantasy world, this is not up to the standard of a dragon, but not far off that. And then there's a Black Orc war boss riding him with this base. He is also attached by pins to the base, but not glued. So again, the finish, I think, came out really, really nicely. In fact, I think some parts of the Black Orc are not finished yet. Just noticing that now. But I was very happy with the result on the wyvern. Got his copper ring in the nose. Okay, so that would be my 10 to 12 best models, but that is going to change quite significantly. So in a year's time, some of these models will still remain of my tops, like the Hellcat, the Kingfisher. Since I'm not sure how many more tanks I'm going to be doing in the near future, the tank will probably still remain, and the wargame stuff. I'm not really intending to touch wargame stuff for a while. But with the Phantoms and Mustangs and Harvards that I'll be doing, I suspect that visually and technically, I'm going to be choosing an almost all new 10 aircraft, and I think it will mostly be aircraft for my best models. Now, of course, it's a little bit debatable as to whether something was that good if it was really only painted well and had almost no special build appeal to it, versus something that had a lot of plastic manipulation, a lot of build work done on it, and yet you wouldn't really know it, and it doesn't really stand out. So there's so many different criteria which you could place on it. The ME109 is just built straight out the box, nothing done, no weathering, it's just painted well, that's all. It just happens to look very nice if you build it well. The Hellcat has got a lot more work on it. It has got oil weathering and quite extensive weathering, but no physical technical work, no build speciality. The little Harvard has got way more build work done on it than the Hellcat and ME109 and Kingfisher combined. With the motorbikes, they just are quite appealing if you build them well and paint them well. You don't have to technically do anything more. You don't have to get the aftermarket stuff. But of course, if you look at the guys' builds online and you see all the work that they put into their motorbikes, it is astonishing. And then an out-the-box build next to these builds, of course, stands no chance. With this, the only kits that I'm intending to ever do this sort of thing again on would probably be the Harvards, where I'll put some work into an old kit just to see if I can make quite an acceptable build. But as I've said, I'm going to be doing that on each of the different manufacturers' builds. So I'm going to do work on an Airfix, on a Hella, on the Academy, and that's sort of just an analysis series that I I choose to do. But taking those old kits and building them specifically to be a absolute great display piece, not really. Okay, let's call it done on that video. I hope you enjoyed looking at those 10 or 12. I didn't bring out a car because I don't think I've done nice looking cars, but they're really just fairly simple builds and they look nice. What else did I not bring out? Oh, I didn't put a helicopter out here, and I didn't put an aircraft that represents that very nice sanded detail finish. This one comes close, even though it's not actually a sanded finish, but it has got the chipping finish. Now, if I had to choose just one of these models, I might have to choose the Hellcat. So if I was going to just choose one model to display for absolute beauty, probably the Hellcat. Okay, happy modeling. Till the next video.